Hello, everybody, and welcome to Exploding Sandwiches. So today's art class is aimed at a slightly younger audience, but as always, there's plenty in it for everybody to get involved with. Just a quick recap. So last weekend, we looked at towers. So thank you so much for sending me in your examples. If you want to go back to Wednesday's tutorial, I show you some of the towers that people did. So again, thank you for doing those. This is number 6 now, number 6 of the weekend tutorials, which are aimed at a slightly younger audience. I've had a few questions about the age range that these are suitable for. And look, I don't really know. I'm not a teacher in a school, so I can't really answer that. My guess is probably year 6 and above. But having said that, when we did the Museum of Colour, people were managing to get really, really young kids, so 3-year-olds involved with it. So I'm sorry, I don't really know the answer to it. But I think like with all these things, no matter if you're the most well-practiced artist or if you're just starting out, there's always some way of getting involved with this at whatever level. So hopefully, no matter if you're a teenager watching this on your own or you're a parent or carer trying to get kids involved, hopefully there's something that you can kind of manage, and it will inspire you whatever entry level you're coming to this at. And hopefully it's something that you've not done before, which is why I called it Exploding Sandwiches. So as always, in the comments section, welcome along if it's your first time watching live. Welcome back if it's not your first time, but as many questions as you want to ask, please, in the comment section. There are no stupid questions. So if you want me to explain something differently, or you want me to clarify something that I haven't explained, or use the term that you're not familiar with, then please let me know, and I'll do my best to put that right and explain it a different way. Also, let me know where you're watching from Cornwall, from Northumberland, from South Somerset. Yeah, the first thing is, I tell you, I am hungry. So all the art sessions that I do are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. And I don't know whether to eat before or whether to eat afterwards. But I tell you, today I'm hungry, and I am going to take you over here, and I'm going to put you down here. But first of all, we're going to look here. So this is what we're going to be working on today. It's a sandwich called the Antonio Special, and I'll let you know a little bit more about that as we go on. But first of all, I'm just going to set you down there so that you can see my kitchen. And like always, all of these sessions are filmed in my kitchen. So I'm taking great pride in turning my kitchen into a TV studio. So around about this time last year, Big Painting Challenge was airing on BBC One. And I suppose that's a little bit different, right? So the good thing about working on that show was that everybody did all the other stuff. So they did the lighting and the sound and all the technical bits. And this time, a year later, I'm having to do it all myself. But, you know, I have a lot of fun improvising with stuff, and it's all good. So the Antonio Special sandwich, hopefully you can see me making it there. I'm starting off with some brown bread and some butter. And then the first ingredient that goes in is the chicken escalope. So unfortunately that came apart, but you kind of get the idea. So that goes on there. Actually, I might put that back on the plate so you can see it. Oh my God, what's that? Is that some paint on my? It's probably some paint on my dishes. Right. So that's the first layer, and then the next thing that goes on is this. So some bacon goes on top. Right, and then some tomato. Right, so I've got a tomato here, and I'm just going to cut that up. So the Antonio Special sandwich started when I was at college, and my friend Antonio went to the local sandwich shop, and they got him to make this sandwich. So it wasn't on the menu, but he was like, guys, can you make me this chicken escalope sandwich? And then, you know, I want a little bit of this added and a little bit more. And they made the sandwich for him, and then they actually put it on the menu. So we thought that was really funny, because from what started out as a sort of custom order, became something which was so good it ended up on the menu. Some cucumber going on top there. Right, and then I've got some, I'm sure these were involved. So Antonio's from El Salvador originally, so I think some jalapeno peppers were involved at some stage. Oops, so they can go on top. What comes next? Right, then what comes next, I think, is some mayonnaise. Bit of mayonnaise on top, and then some mustard. I thought I was hungry earlier. Oops, wrong top. I'm really hungry now. Right, so, and then a bit of pepper goes on top, and then a bit of salt. And then there is the magnificent Antonio special sandwich. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Right, so they're the ingredients again. Okay, so I'm going to take you back over here and put you down there. So we'll come back to the sandwich there in a minute. But what I want to do, let me just plug this in. I want to show you something. Okay, so this is called an exploded drawing. And what it is, as you can see, is a bicycle which has all the parts, all the components exploded. And what it's like if you put a bomb in the center of something, and then all the parts were exploded out from that central thing, and then they were frozen in time. And this drawing captures all the components, all the little parts, all the nuts and bolts, how it goes together. And you can see the saddle comes off, the bolt goes from one angle, and this is a really, really complicated drawing, but I really like it because it's a really good way to explain something complicated like a bicycle and how something goes together. You might also look at this. I mean, this is a little bit more boring. I don't know what this is, but this just explodes in one direction. So it's a whole lot of washers and springs and components which explode from left to right. But still, it's showing an order of how things go together. So much more complicated, much more interesting drawing there. But it's showing us pedals going on and seats coming up and wheels and all sorts. And it doesn't just explode in one direction, it explodes in many directions, whereas this drawing just explodes in one direction. And then the next thing I want to show you is this amazing piece by an artist I was fortunate enough to meet this year, Cornelia Parker. I think it's called Cold Dark Matter. And what it is, it's a shed which she got the British Army to blow up. And she took a regular shed, put it in a field, got the army to blow it up, and then collected every single piece and hung it in the gallery like this with a light inside. So you can just make out there's the window there, and then all these shards of wood are suspended. And obviously the light makes this amazing shadow around the gallery. And I always remember loving this piece. I remember loving the idea of it, the process of it, but also seeing it in real life. Probably 20, 25 years ago, maybe when I was still at school, a teenager. So yeah, really, really excellent. And I was really lucky to meet her. So I was really delighted to see that. So on with the sandwich then. So why would we do this? Well, I've been thinking about this, and I thought let's just get that up a little bit. This might be a good way for us to think about explaining something. So one of the questions I'd like you to think about is, what is the difference between a diagram and an illustration? So they're both types of drawings. That's always a question that I'm thinking about. So this is going to be part drawing, part diagram. Then again, there's lots of ways that you can tackle this. But really, what you need is 5 sheets of A4 paper. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll explain how I've done it. There's another one down there, number 5. And then I want us to think about explaining the components of a sandwich. Now, you can do a sandwich that you're going to eat, like that one. I can't wait to eat that one. Or you can make up a fantasy sandwich with like anything in it you want. But there's quite a lot of ingredients, right? There's bread, butter, chicken, bacon, tomato, cucumbers, peppers, salt and pepper, mayo and mustard. So there's 11 things in there altogether. So we're going to have to work pretty hard to get this to work. So yes, let me show you how to do that. So a sheet of A4 paper, and then fold it in half. So fold it in half lengthways. So you're going to end up with a crease in the paper that looks like that. And that crease is going to really help you get this right. So that crease, you can see, runs up and down there. So I've attached the A4 pieces of paper to make that long strip. So that's one thing that you need. Then so there's 4 of those. Then the last sheet of paper, what I want you to do is fold that. I'm going to have to do this on the table. It's a little bit difficult. Fold that like that. Okay. And then, okay, so you got that. So fold that to make a square. So the thing you're going to do there is then, if I can do it that way around. Is cut that out so you've got a square like that. Okay, so that's going to be super useful. So the square is down there. I've done it in another color just because I figured it might be easier for you to see it. And then the 4 sheets of A4 are on the wall. So I thought this would be good to diagrammatize something. So you might have something that you want to explain, or you might want to make an artwork from it. So I think if you're an engineer or an architect, this is about components, how they go together, understanding stuff, how it comes apart, how it goes back together again. If you're an architect, it might be about layers in a building. And if you're a fine artist, well, I think this is proof that you can make art out of anything, even sandwiches. So like with all the tutorials, they're not really aimed at doing anything fancy with stuff that you have to go out for. You can do everything, hopefully, with stuff you have at home. So as I can see from the comment section, a cheese and onion sandwich, that's level 1, that's basic. But the more ingredients you add, the more complicated it's going to be. So my sandwich is fairly complicated. I've set myself quite a difficult task. But the more ingredients you add, the more difficult it's going to be. So maybe start off with something like cheese and onion, or peanut butter, if it's your first go at it. So I guess like a peanut butter sandwich, that's just sort of like 2 ingredients, right? It's the butter and the peanut butter. Yeah, try and add some, keep it delicious. Don't make a disgusting sandwich. So try and invent a sandwich that is that does 2 things. This is the challenge, right? To make a sandwich which is visually really beautiful when you do the drawing or painting or diagram, but also tastes really good. Okay, so there's no good making a really amazing looking sandwich which tastes disgusting. So try and make something that tastes good and also looks good. Right, let's get going. I'm going to work a little bit over there, and I'm also going to come back and do stuff on the iPad when I can, so I can show you 2 things. Right, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me here. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a yellow pen. I'm going to have to maybe move these ends over. So I'm going to use some felt tips for this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my square of paper that I prepared earlier, and I'm going to put the point of the square at the bottom and then the point of the square at the top. And then using a yellow pen, I'm just going to put those 2 lines there. Okay, I'll show you in a minute on the iPad what I mean by that. So I don't know, yeah, you probably can't see them, which is sort of a good thing actually, because they're just some guidelines. And then what I'm going to do, I know it's at a funny angle, but I'm going to draw the bottom layer which is the bread. So there's no perspective here. I'm just drawing a flat piece of bread. So I know it's at a funny angle because I've got 45-degree angle there, but really this is just a flat piece of bread. So there's the bread there. I'll bring the laptop over so you can see, but I'll also do a version of that on iPad. Okay, so what I've done there, let me just explain. Maybe when it rotate round. Oops. Okay, there you go. Right, so the line here, the gray line is the crease, and then the yellow line is the 45-degree angle that I just drew. Now, then what I drew on there is just this. I'm gonna replicate it before I go back there because I want you to see what I ended up doing. So what am I doing here? Okay, that's fine. So I'm just drawing a slice of a loaf of bread. Okay, so this is what I did on that sheet of paper. Okay, so that's what I mean about it being flat. There's no perspective, there's no distance, there's no three-dimensionality to it. It's just a flat loaf of bread. But I did do it at 45 degrees. Okay, so that's what you see on the wall over there. Right, now, the next thing that I want you to think about is we are gonna make it a little bit more 3D. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop down here. Give it some depth, and I'm going to add a little bit of shading there so that the flat slice of bread has become a little bit three-dimensional. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Right, let's get back to the drawing over there. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so there you go there. Where's my pen gone? Put it back in here. Okay, so there's the slice of bread, and then I'm going to make it I'm going to make it 3D. Right? So then I'll do the next one. Right. I'm going to use the sheet of paper again, and I'm going to leave a bit of space between these two, and I'm going to draw the yellow line again. So the reason I'm using yellow felt tip pen is so that I can't see it. It's a construction line. So I always remember when I was a kid, when I'd get a set of felt tip pens and I'd probably write my name or something with a different letter in a different color. And then I'd always probably be on a white sheet of paper, right? So I'd look at it and then it would be really funny because like one of the letters I'd do in yellow and then you wouldn't be able to see it. So you wouldn't really be able to read the word. So I always remember doing it, thinking it was a good idea, then looking back at it and thinking that was a bad idea because I can't, you know, my name looks like Pascal because the C would be done in yellow. But in this way, it's a good thing. So I'm using it here because I think it's something that I want to work with. Right, now I've done another construction here. There's also a little bit of clean space between the a bit of fresh air between the bread and the next thing. So the next thing that went on was butter. And I'm looking at this distance here and I'm thinking, right, so on with the butter kind of goes on as funny, kind of like spready shapes, right? So that's what that looks like. And I'm going to do, I keep losing that pen, where does it go? With it. And then the next one is the chicken escalope. So when you do this, keep making sure that the angle is right. So keep making sure that top part and that bottom part line up with that center line. So if that starts going off to one side, it's going to not work so well. So the chicken, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly now. So the chicken, I'm going to draw, again, it was flat. So I'm looking at that with my head on one side and thinking about the shape that the chicken escalope made. Okay, and then there's another bit here. I'm going to be able to stand up soon. And the next ingredient is the bacon. So again, I'm just drawing the flat bits of bacon. I guess the bacon, the bacon and the butter, they're fairly flat things. But what I didn't do actually on the chicken was to give that a three-dimensional aspect to it. I forgot that. So I think that needs to be 3D. So like with the bread, where you drop the line down, you can do the same thing to the chicken escalope. But I think the bacon is fairly flat, so we don't need to do it there too much. So there's the bacon. Right, let's do this. So the next one is the tomato. This is where it gets, I think, a little bit more difficult. So the tomato, there were 4 pieces of those, and I can draw those like circles. So remember, I put them in the 4 corners above the bacon. How am I doing for time? Well, I've got some time. I need to speed up a little bit. And then I can also give them a depth. So I can drop down that line and give them a little depth too. Well, yeah, then the cucumber went on after that, didn't it? So try and get those spots right. There's a cucumber. Probably give it a bit of colour there would be good. You can either do this as a line drawing or you can colour it in. It's entirely up to you to how you proceed with this. And then on top of that, so every time I'm making sure that there's a little bit of a gap between each, because if I don't do that, it will become kind of confusing because stuff will overlap in a bad way, I think. So there are the jalapenos. And then there was some salt and pepper. So I'm being naughty and just doing that a bit more freehand. I'm running out of space now. Is that about all right? And then there was the mayonnaise and mustard. So I'm going to kind of, is that the right colour? Yeah, maybe. I'm going to combine those two together. If you've got space, try and maybe give it a little bit of extra room. And then maybe at the top, if you're lucky, I don't think I'm going to be very lucky, you're going to have just enough room to put in the last slice of bread. So I don't know, I don't think there's going to be room, but let's see. Just about. Yeah, not really. I have to cheat that a little bit. Right, then if you've done this right, what should happen is that all these things should line up. So you can bring the butter down and it should just about line up onto the edge of the bread. Likewise with that. And all these things, they should be on top of each other to make that sandwich. So let's have a look at that. I'll take you through that so you can see it. So we started at the bottom there and then move up the butter, the chicken escalope, the bacon, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the jalapenos, the salt and pepper, the mustard and the mayonnaise, and then the top bit of bread. So if you've done that right, what should happen is they should all line up, okay. Right, so if you want to make this more complicated for yourselves, try cutting the sandwich in half so you're dealing with triangles rather than squares. That's a more difficult way of doing it. When you've got a really complicated shape like mayonnaise or actually the butter, if you notice what I did, I had to diagrammatize it. So I had to simplify it a little bit. So the bacon was kind of quite easy to do, but the butter and the mayonnaise was really hard. So I had to look for a way of turning something kind of like semi-fluid like mayonnaise into a diagram, and the same with the butter. So that was really difficult. The other thing you might want to do is you might want to label each one. So what you could do would be to do something like this. So you could go, what's that? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could make that number 6, and then somewhere you could write that number 6 was cucumber or something like that. So that's another way to think about doing it. But really, look, there's lots of ways of doing this, and there's lots of reasons why you should do this. It's really good to think about how things go together, come apart. It's really good to try and make art out of whatever is around you, however humble it is. Something really boring like a sandwich, you try and make into something really exciting and really interesting. So that's why it's good. You don't need to, you can do it with quite a boring sandwich and end up with something, you know, fairly interesting like this, which is a kind of long, narrow canvas, and trying to get the angles right and trying to make it work. So that central line is important. The 45-degree angle at the bottom is super important, and then drawing the plan at 45 degrees will really, really help you explain something. Okay, because we can all be better at explaining stuff, and sometimes we have something in our minds that we want to get built or we want to get made, or just for the fun of explaining something. Try to do a drawing always that explains it. So it's kind of part diagram, part illustration. Think about those two things and think about what they mean. and see if you can work stuff out. I'm just going to quickly look if there's any questions for me. Yes, I'm going to eat the sandwich. I'm glad you asked me that, because really I can't wait to eat this. So let's see. Oh no, that's not going to work. There's the sandwich. There's the layers in my sandwich. Can you see that? So something like that gets explained like that. Okay, and I think that's kind of quite interesting. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm going to go and eat my sandwich now. My tummy is rumbling, and I will see you on Wednesday. So Wednesday, I'm going to tackle foreshortening, which I've had lots of requests about, and it will give me a bit of time to try and figure that out. So I will see you on Wednesday.